I'm going to be painting my figures with acrylics. One of the things that I've discovered about my figures is the acrylic doesn't stick well to the bare plastic surface. So I have sprayed my figure with a light coat of clear matte spray paint. So the colors I'll be using today are burnt sienna and a little yellow ochre. And I'm going to use these for his pants. Just a little touch of burnt sienna, a little touch of yellow ochre, mix those together. What I'm trying to achieve is kind of non-standard colors. I don't want you to be able to identify exactly which of the acrylic colors I used. And these are just going to be brown pants. I'm going to paint a little above his waistline because I don't know where my coat is going to end for my winter jacket. So when the figure is dry, join me back here and we'll go ahead and do some other colors. Now I want to paint some Caucasian flesh tones. I'm going to start with a little yellow ochre and add a little bit of white. To this I'm going to add just the tiniest touch of red. I'm satisfied with that tone for this individual. Fine pointed brush. Paint the neckline and the face. And the hands. I'm going to take just a little bit of the brown, mix it with Mars Black. I'll just try and simulate a little bit of a worn black. And quick paint of the boots. For my winter coats, I'm going to use this modeling clay called Sculpey. It works cleanly, but in order for you to get the shape permanent in the end, you have to bake it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to bake my plastic figures, but we'll give it a try. This type of clay comes in a variety of colors, and I could have chosen just a brick of one color, but I chose to get this variety pack. I'm going to start off with this medium brown. In order to make the jackets, I want to have a very thin sheet of the Sculpey clay. What I've done here is I've taken some 40 thousandths styrene, and on top of that I've just laid two parallel strips of dimensional styrene. That it's about 35 thousandths thick. So I'm going to put my clay in there, and then with a roller I'll smooth it out. But as you can see, the Sculpey clay sticks to the styrene, so I had to come up with another solution. So what I did is I took a sandwich bag and I've opened that up, and I'll put my clay in it. I didn't want to use a cling wrap. I wanted something that would be essentially cling free. So now I put the Sculpey clay in between two layers of the cling wrap, and then I can use any round object to work as a rolling pin to go ahead and get this Sculpey clay flattened out. The width between my raised sections was just a guess based upon the torso to neck length of my figures, but it turns out it was more than generous, so I don't need to go end to end on this, edge to edge. With my Sculpey clay flattened out into a pancake, I can now take this off of the form and open it up, and you can see I have a thin sheet of Sculpey clay. So I'm going to remove this from the plastic sandwich bag and put it down on my work surface. I'm going to do now a little test fit of our figure to see how I want to have him positioned. The most important thing is that the Sculpey clay come down long enough to reach either the waist or the sleeves, whichever is lower. So that's where my figure is. I'm going to get a straight edge and just trim up the bottom straight edge, put that at the bottom of the figure, about wrist level for this guy. Now I want to trim off at the neck. I want to keep this scrap piece handy, and I want to keep it with as nice a straight edge as I can manage, because we're going to create the collar out of this piece in a little bit. The Sculpey needs to have been long enough that we can wrap it over to the front of the individual. Like that. Then I'll trim down the midline just to get rid of the excess. Bring the other side over. Much like a poncho, I suppose. And trim down the center. I ended up taking a little bit too much of the other side. Trim some off, put that in there. I have some sculpting or dental tools that I like. One of them has this flat pointed end on it, and the other side is a scoop. I like those. So now what I'm going to do is basically bring the bottom of the coat up and close the front joint between the Sculpey flaps. I'm going to make sure it wraps over his shoulders well. Smooth it. So now with this poncho shape, what I want to do is I just want to bring a sharp edge. I want to put it between the arm and the torso. And then I want to pull all the way up into the armpit and then stop. And then I'll complete the cut there. What we're going to do now is we're going to wrap the Sculpey clay around the arm, and down into the torso. Sculpted clay is a little long for this wrist. Cut that off. Work on making the bottom of the coat look good. Smooth out the arm. Same thing for this other arm. Cut up to the armpit. Mold the sculpty down into the torso and into the arm. Flatten to conform to the torso and to the arm. Turn him over. Same technique. Contour the sculpey down into the torso and the arms. Clean up the cuffs and bottom of the jacket. To make this figure's hat out of sculpting mold, the first thing I've done is I've chopped off the top of his head to make the top of his head flat. What I then want to do is put two smaller than pea size pieces of sculpting mold into my plastic. The smaller of these two, I'm going to squash it a little bit to get it started to be the brim of the hat. Little test fit of the head, see if the size is right. That's a nice size. That piece might have been a little too big. The brim is going to be a little thick. And we'll put it on his head. Yeah, this is the tough part. On the sculpting mold, it sticks to everything. This one is a little absurdly large for the brim of the cap, but I'm going to leave it. It's a nice place to start. The other sculpting mold P that we're using, I want to cut this in half, and this is going to be the dome of the cap. And I want to preserve the globe shape. So the flat portion is now going to go onto his head. And here's where there will be kind of a lot of little touch-up. Lift the brim, squash the hat, bring them together. I may ultimately decide that hats just aren't worth it. I'll tell you in about 40 figures what I think of it. Again, remember, I'm an impressionist modeler. I just want the viewer to understand there was a need for a hat. It was cold. The actual hat itself from a distance may not be so important. Well, thanks for joining me for low scale figures.